Welcome back to one more session on design of RCC slab. This is in continuation with my previous video on 10 important steps in design of RCC slab. In first part, we have already studied how to decide the depth of the slab, how to calculate effective span of the slab, and how to calculate various loads on the slab. Now in this second part, I will explain you how to calculate ultimate bending moment which depends on type of the slab. Here we will consider simply supported slab, cantilever slab and one-way continuous slab. The next step will be to check the depth to take maximum ultimate moment. Then we will discuss about calculation of main reinforcement and how to check the reinforcement for minimum criteria and how to decide the spacing of the bars. After that we will calculate the transverse reinforcement, which is also called as distribution steel in the slab. In this sketch, you can observe the position of main reinforcement and transverse reinforcement. Main reinforcement is shown with blue color, which is parallel to the span in both the cases, and perpendicular to that there is transverse reinforcement, which is also called as distribution steel. So here we will discuss how to calculate the amount of this steel and what will be the spacing between these bars. Then next step will be the check for deflection. After that, check for shear force, and then we will discuss check for development length. These are the 10 important steps in design of any slab. So in first part, we have already discussed first 3 steps of design of slab. I am providing the link of first part in description box in case you want to watch it. Now in this part 2, I will explain to you the remaining 7 steps. But before we proceed further, I request my viewers, please share these videos on RCC design for the benefit of other students because students find this subject a bit difficult. So let us start second part. Step number 4 is calculation of ultimate bending moment. So here we are going to calculate maximum bending moment. You know that bending moment depends on support condition. So here we are going to consider 3 cases, that is simply supported slab, cantilever slab and continuous slab. So let us see how to calculate ultimate bending moment in these 3 cases. So just I told you that bending moment depends on type of support. So in this video we are going to discuss only one-way slab, that is one-way simply supported slab, one-way cantilever slab and one-way continuous slab. So let us see how to calculate the maximum bending moment in all these cases. So consider simply supported beam. In previous video we have already seen how to calculate the effective span of the beam, slab. Consider simply supported slab. In previous video we have already seen how to calculate the effective span of the slab and how to calculate the load on the slab. So if you know the load and the span, then we know that for simply supported slab, the maximum bending moment is at the center of the slab. And there is a standard formula which is WL square by 8. So using this formula, we can calculate maximum bending moment in simply supported slab. Now consider the cantilever slab. We know that for cantilever slab, the maximum bending moment occur at the support. So at support there is maximum bending moment. So we know that total load on the slab is W into L and it will act at L by 2 from the support. So bending moment is force into perpendicular distance. So WL is total load, it will act at L by 2. So bending moment in cantilever slab, maximum bending moment at support is WU L square by 2. To calculate the ultimate bending moment at various locations in one-way continuous slab, we have to use the page number 36 of your IS code, table 12. In table 12, various coefficients are given. So in one-way continuous slab, we have to calculate bending moment at supports B and C. At A, it is simple support, so bending moment is 0. Bending moment at B and C will be negative. Similarly, we have to calculate bending moment at center of the span, which will be positive. So if you refer this table number 12, you have to take this dead load and live load separately. So first sketch indicates total dead load on the slab, and second sketch indicate live load on the slab. Both the sketches will look alike. So we have to take this separately, dead load and live load. And then after that, we have to refer page number 36, table 12 of your IS 456. So here the coefficients are given at the support and also at the mid span. So when we calculate the bending moment using various coefficients, you will observe that maximum bending moment you will get at support B, which is called as penultimate support, which is next to the end support. At this support, the bending moment is maximum. This bending moment we have to use for calculation or checking of the depth for the maximum bending moment. Similarly, for positive bending moment is maximum in the end span, near center of the end span. So positive bending moment is maximum at the center of end span, whereas negative bending moment is maximum at support, which is next to the end supports. Then how to calculate bending moment? It is given in the IS code. So let us understand those clauses. If you open page number 36, table 12, you will get such table number 12, bending moment coefficient, and table number 13 is shear force coefficients. Here there is force. So here we are using clause number 22.5.1. So if you observe this table, there are two rows. First row is dead load and imposed load fixed, and second row is for imposed load not fixed. What does it mean? In first case, suppose the live load is fixed, then we have to use first row. And if live load is not fixed, then for dead load we have to use first row, and for live load we have to use second row. Now for these cases, these are the coefficients. What is the meaning of this coefficient? For example, here it is written span moment, near middle of end span. So just now I told you that in end span, middle of the end span, how we calculate bending moment? The coefficient is 1/12 plus means sagging. There is sagging bending moment and coefficient is 1/12. That means bending moment is WL square by 12. At middle of interior span, so in next span, the bending moment is less, which is positive WL square by 16. At the support next to end support, bending moment is negative, that is hogging, which is WL square by 10. And at interior supports, it is negative bending moment WL square by 12. So this is when imposed load is fixed. But if imposed load is not fixed, then for dead load we have to take coefficient 1/12, and for live load we have to take coefficient 1/10. So I will explain this in detail. Just observe this. Near middle of end span, coefficient is 1/12. What does it mean? It means that this is the end span, this is the middle of end span, and here coefficient is plus 1/12. Why it is plus? Because there is bending like this. If load is downward, it will bend like this. It is called as sagging. And for sagging, we use positive sign. So here coefficient is 1/12. So what is 1/12? WL square by 12. What is W? W is dead load plus live load. WL square by 12. That is the meaning of coefficient 1/12 at middle of end span. Now next is middle of interior span coefficient is 1 by 16. So what is the meaning of this? It means that for interior span means for span BC, middle of interior span means here. Here if the load is downward, there will be sagging like this. And if it is sagging, we have to take positive sign, and coefficient was 1 by 16. So it is WL square by 16. So W dead load plus live load L square by 16. So this is how to calculate bending moment at center of interior span. Next, to calculate bending moment at support. I told you that bending moment at support is negative. Now in this table it is given that at support next to end support coefficient is minus 1 by 10. So next support next to end support coefficient is minus 1 by 10. So this is the support which is next to end support. So here there will be hogging like this because of loading, and therefore bending moment is negative. 1 by 10 is the coefficient, so WL square by 10. So at B, out of these four positions, that is at center of AB, at B, at center of BC, and at C, out of these four positions, maximum bending moment you are going to get at support B. So this is the position of maximum bending moment in continuous one-way continuous slab. Next, it is given that at other interior support coefficient is minus 1 by 12. At other interior support means here at support C there is hogging because it is support and coefficient is minus 1 by 12. So it will look like this. So this is how to calculate the bending moment at various locations in one-way continuous slab. Now whatever we have discussed so far is for fixed imposed load. When the imposed load was fixed, we have added dead load and live load. But if the imposed load or live load is not fixed, then we have to take these coefficients separately. For example, near middle of end span, coefficient for dead load is 1 by 12 and coefficient for live load is 1 by 10. Now how it will look like? So at the middle of end span, just now we have seen that for dead load coefficient is 1 by 12 and for live load coefficient is 1 by 10. So we have to write W dead load L square by 12, W live load L square by 10. This is how we can calculate the bending moment at center of end span. Similarly, using the coefficient, the bending moment at center of interior span, the coefficients are 1 by 16 and 1 by 12. Then for support which is next to end support, the bending moment is negative and coefficients are 1 by 10 and 1 by 9. So this is how the formula look like when the live load is not fixed. And at this support, the coefficients are 1 by 12 and 1 by 9. So using this formula, we have to calculate the bending moment. Remember that maximum bending moment will be at support B, which we have to use for checking the depth for bending moment. Now once you calculate the maximum bending moment, the next step is check for depth, because we have assumed the depth using certain criteria. Now we will check whether the depth we have assumed, which we have provided, is sufficient to take the ultimate bending moment. So for that we have to take maximum bending moment. For one-way continuous slab you have to take bending moment at support B, and for other cases you have to take maximum bending moment. Now let us see how to check for depth. So for this, what we do, we equate maximum bending moment. Maximum bending moment just now we have calculated. We equate this maximum bending moment to moment of resistance. So what is moment of resistance? That we know moment of resistance is KFCK BD square. So mu is maximum bending moment and moment of resistance Mr is Kfck BD square. So we equate this. We know mu, we have already calculated in step number 4 maximum bending moment. Then FCK we know, that is the grade of concrete. For slab we have to consider width as 1000 millimeter and K depends on type of steel. So if it is Fe250 you have to take 0.149, for Fe415 0.138 and for Fe500 0.133. Remember these values. I will explain you this in some other videos how to calculate these values. So in this case just remember these values. So in this formula mu is maximum bending moment which we have calculated in step number 4. K is known from this. FCK is grade of concrete, B is 1000, only unknown is D. So from this calculate what is the depth required to take this maximum bending moment. And this calculated depth must be less than whatever we have provided. If it is less, then it is okay. So this is how to check for depth to take the maximum bending moment. As you know, the design of slab means calculating the thickness of the slab and calculating the amount of steel required, that is main steel and transverse steel required in the slab. So next important step is calculation of main reinforcement. Here we will calculate what is the amount of steel required in the slab, and then we will check this steel for minimum requirement, and then we will calculate what we will decide the diameter of the bar and spacing of the bar. Now how much steel is required in the slab depends on bending moment, that is maximum bending moment, grade of the material, grade of concrete and grade of steel, and also the depth of the slab. So using this formula, you remember this formula we use to calculate the area of steel required in the slab. So here we know everything, FCK, Fi, Mu, B we have to take 1000 millimeter. For slab everywhere B is 1000 millimeter and D is effective depth. So using this formula you can calculate what is the steel required in the slab. Now once you calculate this steel, we have to check for the minimum criteria. For minimum criteria in IS code page number 48, clause number 26.5.2.1. So in this clause it is given that if the steel is Fe250, that is mild steel, then minimum steel is 0.15% of gross area of concrete. If it is not Fe250 but other steel, for other steel AST minimum is 0.12% of gross area. So we have to calculate this steel according to the grade of steel given. So for that we have to calculate 0.15% or 0.12% and then check that whether this steel we have calculated using formula is more than this or not. If it is less, then you have to take this minimum, at least this much steel you have to provide in the slab. So if you provide the steel less than the minimum steel, the cracks may develop in the concrete, in the tension zone of the slab, and therefore we have to provide this minimum steel in the slab. So once you calculate area of steel using this formula, you calculate 0.15% of gross area means B into D, where B is 1000 and D is overall depth of the slab. So for Fe250, you have to use this formula 0.15% of BD, and for other steel you have to use this formula 0.12% of B into D. Remember here D is overall depth of the slab, and minimum you have to provide this, but if this steel is more than minimum, then you have to provide whatever you have calculated using the formula. Now once you calculate the area of steel required in the slab, next step is to decide the diameter of the bars and spacing of main bars. So to decide the diameter of the bar, minimum diameter of the bar for Tor steel is taken as 8 millimeter. Normally in slab, the diameter of bar used is 8 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 16 millimeter and 20 millimeter. So minimum diameter is 8 millimeter for torch steel and maximum diameter, it is given on page number 48, clause number, there is mistake in the spelling, clause number 26.5.2.2. In this clause, if you read this clause, you will find that diameter of main bar should not be greater than d by 8, 1/8 of the d, where d is overall depth of the slab. So this is how we decide the diameter of the bar. Minimum diameter is 8 millimeter and maximum is 1/8 of the depth of the slab. Next is to calculate spacing of main bar. To calculate spacing of main bar, we use this formula. We decide the diameter of the bar, calculate area of one bar divided by total area required. This area is required in 1 meter width of the slab. So multiply it by 1000. So this is the spacing of the bar. This is how we calculate it. Now this spacing we have to check with this. This is given in on page number 46 in this clause. It is given that the spacing should not be more than 3 times the effective depth of the slab, or it should not be more than 300 millimeter. So after calculating spacing of the bar using this formula, you have to check that whether it is less than 3D or 300 millimeter. So using these three criteria, you have to take the minimum of these above three. After deciding the diameter of main bars, which are shown with blue color, and spacing between the bars, next step is to calculate transverse steel, which is also called as distribution steel. So let us calculate transverse steel, decide the diameter of transverse steel and calculate the spacing of the transverse steel. There are also clauses given for the spacing of transverse steel in IS code. So step number 7 is calculation of transverse reinforcement, that is distribution steel. In IS code, it is mentioned that for distribution steel, it is to be taken equal to the minimum steel. So we know that for Fe250, minimum steel is 0.15% of B into overall depth of the slab. And for other steel, it is 0.12%. So distribution steel, we have already calculated this AST minimum. So we don't have to calculate again. So this steel we have to provide depending on the grade of steel, 0.15% or 0.12%, where B is 1000 millimeter and D is overall depth of the slab. So this is how to calculate amount of distribution steel required in the slab. Now let us see how to decide spacing of distribution steel. So spacing formula is same, area of one bar divided by AST minimum. Here you have to write AST minimum, that is the area of distribution steel multiplied by 1000. So again there are three criteria. First is this, calculate spacing using this. Then on page number 46, in this clause, it is given that for distribution steel, the spacing is 5D or 450 millimeter. So calculate spacing using formula, calculate using 5 multiplied by effective depth and 450 millimeter. Out of this, whichever is minimum, that you have to take as spacing of distribution steel. Now once you decide the spacing and diameter of main bars and distribution steel, next step is check for deflection. So step number 8 is check for deflection. In this step, we will calculate what is the depth required so that there will not be any excessive deflection. So check for deflection is nothing but calculation of the depth to satisfy deflection criteria. So let us see how to calculate depth for the deflection criteria. In design of RCC structure, whenever we calculate certain things like steel, depth, etc. from bending moment or shear force criteria, anything which you calculate from shear force, bending moment, axial force, torsion, etc. Those steps are called as limit state of collapse. Whereas whenever we do not use any of these bending moment, shear force or torsion, etc., it is called as limit state of serviceability. So this step comes under category limit state of serviceability, because here we are not going to use any bending moment or shear force or any internal force for calculation of the depth. So initially when we have decided the depth of the slab, we have used this formula. Effective depth is equal to effective span divided by basic value, which depends on the type of the slab, simply supported, cantilever or continuous slab, multiplied by modification factor. Now this modification factor we have assumed initially, because this modification factor depends on the reinforcement in the slab, and initially we do not know the reinforcement in the slab, therefore we assume this value. Now in this step we now actually calculate this modification factor, then we calculate what is actual depth required for deflection criteria, and this calculated depth must be less than assumed depth, then it will be safe for deflection. Okay, so initially we have assumed the depth using this formula only, but that time area of steel was not known, and therefore we could not calculate modification factor exact value. We have assumed certain value of modification factor, but now we know the reinforcement in the slab, and therefore now we can calculate actual value of modification factor. For that we have to refer page number 38, figure number 4. If you observe this figure number 4 on page number 38 of your IS code, you will observe that modification factor depends on percentage of tension reinforcement, which now we have already calculated. Now let us see how to calculate this modification factor using figure number 4. So figure number 4 look like this. So here you will observe that this formula is given, Fs is equal to, I am writing this formula again here, Fs is equal to 0.58 Fy, area of cross section of steel required divided by area of cross section of steel provided. So first we calculate what is the steel required from bending moment criteria, and after providing the spacing, we round up the spacing, and therefore the steel provided is normally more than what is steel required. Therefore we take this ratio multiplied by 0.58 Fy, which is called as Fs, and Fs is nothing but, it is given here, Fs is stress in the steel in at service load in Newton per millimeter square. So there are certain graphs given here depending on the value of Fs. Now if you observe this graph, on x-axis there is percentage tension reinforcement. So first of all we have to calculate what is the percentage of steel provided in this slab. So it is calculated like this, AST upon BD into 100. Once you calculate percentage of steel, then on x-axis you mark that point and take a vertical line which will cut the Fs line, and from that point you take a horizontal line which will cut the y-axis. So where this line cut the y-axis is called as modification factor. So read that value where it cuts the y-axis. So this is modification factor, actual modification factor, which we calculate from percentage of steel and Fs. After this, you have to substitute this modification factor in this formula and calculate what is the effective depth required for deflection criteria. So for safe design, this calculated value of D from this formula using actual modification factor, this should be less than whatever T we have provided. If this satisfies this condition, then this slab is safe in deflection. The deflection will be within permissible limit. Now step number 9 is check for shear force. Now remember that in case of beams, we provide stirrups to take the shear force. But in case of slab, no shear reinforcement is provided. So therefore, we have to check that whether the concrete available in the slab is sufficient to take the shear force. Since there is no separate shear reinforcement provided in the slab. So we have to check for shear force. This is limit state of collapse. The clauses related to check for shear force are given on the page number 72 and 73 of your IS code. This is called as limit state of collapse. So how to check for shear? So for that, first of all, from the given load or the load which we have calculated, we first calculate what is the actual shear force in the slab. So actual shear force depends on the span and the load on the slab. It is called as VUD, that is designed shear force. Then we calculate what is the shear force carrying capacity of the concrete, which is called as VUC. So for safe design, the concrete capacity must be more than actual shear force. So for safe design, VUC must be greater than VUD. Now let us see how to calculate actual shear force and shear capacity of the concrete. Now actual shear force depends on the type of the slab, whether it is simply supported, cantilever or continuous slab. Now let us first discuss about simply supported slab. For simply supported slab, suppose L is the effective span and W is the load, then we know that shear force diagram for UDL is something like this. And maximum shear force is at support, and value of this shear force is nothing but it is equal to reaction at the support. What is reaction at the support? It is total load divided by 2. So for simply supported slab, total load is W into L and divided by 2. This is the maximum shear force in simply supported slab. Next is cantilever slab. We know that for cantilever slab, the shear force is 0 at the free end and it is maximum at the support, which is equal to reaction at the support. And reaction at the support, summation of vertical forces equal to 0, then reaction at support is equal to total load, which is W into L. And therefore maximum shear force in cantilever slab is equal to W into L. Now to calculate the shear force in one-way continuous slab, we have to use page number 36 of your IS core, table number 13. It is just similar to what we have discussed while calculating the bending moment in continuous slab. So there is a table given, table number 13, shear force coefficients. So using these coefficients, we have to calculate shear force at various supports. So if you observe these shear force coefficients, you will observe that shear force is maximum at the support which is next to the end support, that means here. So maximum shear force occurs here in case of one-way continuous slab. So this is how we calculate actual value of shear force. Now we will see how to calculate the shear resistance of concrete. To calculate shear resistance of concrete, that is VUC, you have to refer page number 72 of your IS code. So there we are going to calculate what is shear force carrying capacity of concrete. You know that force is equal to stress into area. So this is shear force, this is shear stress, and this is area which resists that shear force. So shear force is equal to stress into area. Now how to calculate this stress? Let us see. So for that in IS code this formula is given. This is called as tau UC. This we can read from page number 72 clause 40.2.1.1. So this is shear stress in concrete. So shear stress in concrete can be calculated using clause given on page number 72. So here this K is the coefficient. There is one table given on page number 72. Using that table, we can calculate the value of K. If you observe the table given in clause number 40.2.1.1, you can see that this K value depends on overall depth of the slab. Next is how to calculate tau C. So tau C we can calculate from page number 73, table number 19. On page number 73, table number 19, tau C value is given. Tau C value depends on grade of concrete and percentage of steel. So we know the grade of concrete and we also know the percentage of steel. Depending on that, we can calculate tau C. So multiply K into tau C, you will get tau UC. So this stress multiplied by B is 1000 and D is effective depth, we will get the shear capacity of concrete. Now we know actual shear force and shear capacity of concrete. So VUD is design shear force. This VUD must be less than VUC. Or in other words, you can say that for safe design, the shear resistance of concrete must be greater than the design shear force. So if you get this check, then this slab is safe for shear. We are calculating this, we are checking this for shear because we are not going to provide any separate reinforcement to take the shear force. So we must get this check. If you do not get this check, then we have to increase the depth of the slab or amount of the steel in the slab. Now step number 10, check for development length. So for this, we have to refer page number 44, clause number 26.2.3.3. So here it is given that if you calculate LD, that is development length, and if you calculate M1 by V plus L0, this formula is given in this clause 26.2.3.3. We are multiplying it by 1.3. There is one sentence given in that clause that we can increase this by 30%. So we are multiplying it by 1.3. You read this clause carefully. So if we get this check, that means if the development length is less than this right side, then in that case no anchorage is required at the end, and therefore we are checking this for development length. So how we calculate LD? To calculate LD, the formula is given in the IS code on page number 42, clause number 26.2.1.1. So in this case, phi sigma s upon 4 tau BD. Now what is phi? Phi is nominal diameter of the bar. Sigma s is the stress in the bar. Then tau BD we can get it from page number 43 of your IS code. There is one table given. This tau BD is the bond stress which depends on the grade of the concrete. So this we can get it from the table which is on page number 43. So substitute tau BD, sigma s and diameter of the bar. M1 is moment resisted by bar at the end support. So at end we bend 50% bar. So only 50% bars are available at the end. So we calculate the bending moment which is 50% of the total bending moment at the end, and V is the shear force. Now here L0 we can take 0 if because in case of slab we do not provide the hook at the end, and therefore we can take the value of L0 as 0. So in this formula we calculate LD. How we calculate LD? Phi sigma s upon 4 tau BD. Now remember that phi is the diameter of bar. Sigma s we take the stress in steel which is equal to 0.87 times Fy. Now tau BD, regarding tau BD, there is one note given in clause number 26.2.1.1. So there it is given that if it is Fe250, then you can directly take the value of tau BD which is given in the table. But if it is a deformed bar, then we have to increase this value of tau BD by 60%. That means if you are using Fe415 steel, then you have to multiply this value of tau BD given in the table by 1.6. Okay. So this is how we calculate this. And if you get LD less than this right side, then no anchorage is required. But however, we can provide LD by 3 bar length inside the support. So this is how we check for development length. Now the most important step is detailing of reinforcement, because whatever we design, finally we have to show it on the sketch. So this we will see while solving the numerical example. If you found this video useful, then please like it and share it. These are the 10 important steps to design any type of RCC slabs. Thanks for watching.